Welcome in, everybody. Let's get everybody in here going to talk about the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer, talking about the Jazz dropping to the Suns. We'll get everybody in here in a moment. Welcome to Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. I gotta get my beers sorted out here as we get everybody in line to talk about this game we just watched. I think we got all the messages posted and all that good stuff to make sure that we got the right people tuning in and looking at the right stuff. So let's see what we got going on today. Got one commenter saying that, look, man, as long as we're not talking about Colin Sexton, we're all good. We'll see how little we talk about Colin Sexton and how much we do. Actually, Colin Sexton didn't really play too much into what happened tonight. We had a little good third quarter action, but we got a lot more fun, more interesting things to talk about on the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. So get everybody coming in here. We got the live show coming in. My name is Mark. I love being here. Friday night. Let's talk about the Jazz. 2-0 coming into today with NBA Cup action, having dispatched the what should have been an easy win against the Portland Trail Blazers, absolutely was, and then a surprisingly easy victory against the Memphis Grizzlies. Not surprising insofar as what you'd expect from how they've done so far, but definitely a surprising preseason. I'm checking out the YouTube session now, and I'm not seeing that we are. The video is actually showing right now, so I want to make sure that we're actually live with the right video. We are. Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure that we were live with the right video there for everyone viewing on YouTube. My name is Mark Pereira. Welcome into the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. Let's get started in earnest. My name is Mark. I love the Jazz. I live in Denver. I love having a beer and talking about the Jazz. So let's go. So we got the Utah Jazz going 2-0 going into today's game against the Phoenix Suns at home. Second game in a row with the purple court at home. Purple jerseys, purple court. Purple is back, everybody. Just ignore the highlighter yellow that you see in the tunnels for player introductions, and you'll be just fine. The Jazz have an easy victory over the Portland Trail Blazers a couple nights ago, and a relatively easy victory over the surprisingly dump Memphis Grizzlies a few nights ago. So the Jazz go into tonight with a 2-0 record in the group for the NBA Cup, and they have a home game against the Phoenix Suns without Bradley Beal. And as we all know about the Phoenix Suns, if they don't have one of their main stars, you end up with a very tenuous position on their depth. They have Kevin Durant, they have Devin Booker, two of the very, very, very best players in the game. And while we all love their minimum signings of Drew Eubanks and Yuta Watanabe and Keita Bates-Diop and bringing Eric Gordon in for nothing, and they have some very quality minimum signings that they brought onto the team. However, if they lose one of their stars, that ends up being not the best squad that you can possibly roll out for 48 minutes at a time. And that was proven today. The Jazz started out absolutely getting their shit kicked in by a very quality Phoenix starting lineup of Yusuf Nurkic, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Eric Gordon. I'm already forgetting the fifth starter, which is making me feel bad. But instead of Bradley Beal, they rolled out Grayson Allen in the starting lineup. And in the first 4 minutes, the Phoenix Suns got out to scoring, 28 points in the first 4 minutes? That seems to be not less than ideal. The Jazz got everything back together when the Suns started rolling in their reserves and the Jazz started rolling in their reserves. The Jazz backup players at every position are always pretty solid. And against a weaker bench like the Phoenix Suns are going to roll out, everything started to stabilize after a little while, and that was always positive. Phoenix had 21 points in the first 4 minutes, which I said 28 before in 4 minutes. That might have been too aggressive, perhaps. But then you end up with Utah allowing 20 points in the last 8 minutes of the first quarter. So Phoenix scored 41 points in the first quarter, but after allowing 21 points in the first 4 minutes, you thought Utah was in for a long, long afternoon. Ended up being a relatively more tame proposition for the Jazz going on from there. And again, you get the Suns rolling out bench lineups that include Watanabe and Bates Diop and et cetera. Drew Eubanks, totally fine backup center at the minimum. But the Jazz are able to roll out reserves such as quality veterans, such as Kelly Olynyk, Talen Horton-Tucker, who I have problems with Talen Horton-Tucker as a starting guard, but as a reserve player, he's pretty solid. You end up with a reserve lineups for the Jazz that can actually compete with these players for the Suns and actually sort of started to normalize. And so you end up going into halftime at a tie game. After the third quarter, Utah is down only 3. And Utah matches Phoenix in the fourth quarter to end up losing by 3, 131-128, a total offensive juggernaut of a performance by both teams today. But Phoenix gets the win on the road. Phoenix moves to 6-6 on the season, 2-1 on the group. Utah drops to 4-8 on the season. They fall to 2-1 in the group as well. The Lakers are 3-0 in the NBA Cup group. So that means that Utah will need to pull off an improbable victory against the Los Angeles Lakers on the road. I think that's Monday or Tuesday. And we'll need some luck on the point differential front from Phoenix, who are 2-1 in the group. Or I believe they're... Is Phoenix 1-1 or 2-1? Either way, we'll need some luck from Phoenix, who dropped to the Lakers as their first NBA Cup game. In-season tournament has never been a thing that a lot of Jazz fans super, super duper care about, though. We want to talk about the team as a whole. What's going on? What happened today? Look, we got 82 games of this season. The Jazz aren't winning the title. We're probably not going to make the playoffs. I've said for a long time, I just don't give a shit if the Jazz make the playoffs or not. It's all about every game. What is happening with the Utah Jazz that indicates that this team is bridging itself to the next great contending team? We might live 100 years and never see the Utah Jazz win a title, but all you want every single year is to go into every game, every season thinking, this team has a chance. This team is worth watching every single night. And my number one takeaway from tonight is, I'm glad I watched the Utah Jazz tonight. And that seems like a very stupid takeaway for a lot of you who are thinking like, well, okay, fine. Like, I enjoyed watching them tonight. What does that matter? Do you all remember the Ty Corbin Jazz and how flagrantly awful they were to watch? There's just nothing. Every position was, why am I here? Why should I not be doing something else? And at least every possession of this year's Utah Jazz is interesting. Good offense and horrendous defense will tend to do that to a team. Like, hey, I'm it's a little bit more fun to watch good offense than good defense at times. But we have players who are worth watching on the offensive end of the court. Jordan Clarkson completely kept Utah afloat today offensively as part of that enjoyable to watch aspect of it. But he was able to, I said this before in the last game against the Blazers, if Jordan Clarkson is going against defensive players of an opponent who aren't totally up to the task of guarding real professional, guilish quality offensive ball handlers like Jordan Clarkson, he's tending to sense that more and more, and he ate them for lunch. And Devin Booker's never been a great defender. You got Eric Gordon out there who's 30 million years old. And Jordan Clarkson basically was able to get to a spot over and over and over again and get his mid-range shots and his close-range shots. He blew by a bunch of guys today to get layups. And the difference between a Clarkson 24-point night and a 37-point night is Clarkson absolutely drilling three after three after three after three, many of them being very difficult shots. And this is where you can't really give a guy a whole lot of credit, right? Like Jordan Clarkson was 5 of 10 from 3 today. He very easily could have been 2 of 10 or 1 of 10 from 3 today with the quality of shots that he was taking and making and missing. 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 0 turnovers for Clarkson. And notably, only 8 turnovers as a whole for the Jazz today. So, welcome to the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. My name is Mark. This is a free-form, open-ended chat to talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to dive in, drop a comment, say hello. I'm all for it. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment in the chat. Riley O'Brien, I see you, man. Let's go. Let's chat. If you're in the live postcast on Twitter Spaces, drop me a note. Let's go. You can ask to speak. I'm here. Let's chat. So we'll go through this game today a little, going from here. You also note in some places this is called the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. This is an alcohol-forward podcast. Have I been drinking during this game on a Friday night? You absolutely. And am I inebriated? Absolutely. So you'll get my raw, uncut thoughts about the beer. You'll see that I am drinking 8.5% Imperial Stout today. Cheers. Cheers to you enjoying the Jazz on a Friday night. The Jazz fought gamely in the second half. I really thought they had a chance at pulling off the victory. You did have Kevin Durant getting 38, 9, and 9. There was just no contest for the way the Jazz were defending Durant. Ochai Agbaji had his best defensive game, I think, of his entire career. He was manning up one-on-one against Booker and Durant on many occasions, and I thought his contests, his reactions, everything about Agbaji today was great. Offensively, defensively, I think Agbaji had 3 blocks today. Yes, he did have 3 blocks today. But ultimately, the way Kevin Durant is getting his 38 points, and you have Devin Booker getting 15 assists, which might be a career high for them. I'm going to have to look that up right now. Has nothing to do with Ochai Agbaji. Agbaji, I think, legitimately had his best defensive game of his entire career. His weak side help was great. His on-ball help was great. The failures of the Jazz defense were collective in nature. This might have been the worst defensive game I've ever seen Lauri Markkanen play. You'll see on the stats on YouTube, I have Markkanen with 21, 2, and 0. John Collins was a totally fine rebounder, as he always is, but Markkanen with 2 rebounds, 0 assists, and 21 points. Markkanen getting over half of his points, or nearly half of his points, of those 21 points at the free throw line. Markkanen was playing the ostensible center against Yusuf Nurkic and sometimes Drew Eubanks, and I get it, no Walker Kessler out there, and we're starting John Collins, Markkanen, and Agbaji. Agbaji, how many rebounds did Agbaji have? He skied up for some rebounds today. That was really impressive to see. Agbaji with only 5 rebounds, but I would say they were quite impressive. Agbaji was a team high +4 today. I really hope Agbaji, 0 turnovers, 3 fouls. I really hope Agbaji takes this tape home and says, this might have been my best game of my entire career. Because, yes, he's had games last year where he was passing the ball, playing really well, as like a focal offensive point. But, like, this is who we should be for the next championship team, whoever Agbaji's playing for. Hopefully it's the Jazz. 8 points, plus 4, 3 blocks, 5 rebounds, 2 from 3, 3 or 4 from the field in 25 minutes. I want him to do a little. I think he's got the skill to do a little bit more. I don't think he's quite an 8.5 rebound player in 25 minutes. But the defense he played on one-on-one situations and help defense situations is great. You end up with Kevin Durant going for $39.99 and Devin Booker getting 15 assists because of everybody else. And as much praise as I want to put on Keontae George is very slow on help defense. Lauri Markkanen was fucking miserable on help defense today. And I've been really impressed with Lauri Markkanen one-on-one defense. I thought his rim protection numbers were pretty good, but he was completely beasted on a rebounding perspective today by Jusuf Nurkic. There was one point where he had a full box out on Jusuf Nurkic, and Nurkic still got the ball and drew a foul on Markkanen. Markkanen, look, man, he's not a center. And as much as we love John Collins, as for all that John Collins thinks he provides, I think it's been very clear in the 10 to 15 games so far this year that he is a string bean, high flyer, athletic type, and not, I can solve your rebounding problems on my own against all types of opponents. So I really liked having, really liked the Badger's defense today, but everybody else, including Markkanen, Collins, Keontae George especially, and everybody else really failed at just one rotation over help defense. Like, I don't know if it's a coaching thing or what, but it's, you would have Kevin Durant be off the ball, and the player who was on the ball, such as Devin Booker or Grayson Allen or what have you, the Jazz defense would do these subtle digs towards the ball handler, and instead of like a straight double team of like a Devin Booker. And if you're not going to do the straight double team, you have to be very quick at doing these quick little cuts to dig and force the ball handler to make a decision or pick up their dribble and immediately sprint back to your man. A double team, on the other hand, you are fully committing to the guy with the ball. And you're relying on the guys behind you to rotate over, cover your men, cover two guys at once. And the Jazz were stuck in between both kinds of defenses. And you had Lauri Markkanen doing these subtle little digs in against whoever had the ball, and Markkanen was often tasked with being with Kevin Durant being the man that he was guarding. And Markkanen would do these subtle digs, and then after the ball was passed off of the ball handler, whether it be to Kevin Durant or somebody else, Markkanen was so slow getting back to guarding the man that he was ascribed to, whether it be Nurkic or Kevin Durant most frequently. That created a lot of big problems for the defense, in the tune of giving up 75 first half points. Mentioning Devin Booker having 15 assists, he had only one turnover. Again, the Jazz, a big struggle that they've had for years is forcing turnovers. The steal rate for the Jazz is preposterously low. They only had 3 steals today. And if you're only going to force the Suns into 8 turnovers, more than 3 of those have to be steals. Very low turnover gain for both parties. 8 turnovers for each team today. Alex Current mentions in YouTube that we gave up 131, but our defensive rotations are much sharper than they have been. Lowry was communicating, everyone was giving effort. I think that's true from the second half. I think the first half was absolutely... I just went on a long diatribe about how poor I thought that the defensive rotations were in the first half. But now that I'm thinking about it, the second half was a little bit improved from a rotation standpoint. Communication, it's interesting to hear about communication without being there on the floor. I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of be on the floor for the game where they were here in Denver. And John Collins is an extremely vocal defender, screaming, talking all the time. Really appreciated hearing him talk and get everyone in the right spots. Interesting to hear. I didn't really see that on the broadcast, but interesting to hear in a YouTube comment that Lowry was communicating quite well. I thought in the second, obviously you look at the points scored, it's pretty great. And I thought the contests were much better. I thought Abaji played fantastic in the second half, especially defensively. And Lowry is a good defensive player on the whole. And I just thought that today he was just a step and a half slow on several rotations, and it kind of tended to be a problem. And the communication, Lowry's going to be a guy who, if you're going to start a lineup of Collins and Lowry at the 4 and the 5, you don't have Walker Kessler, you have a lot of responsibility that's hoisted upon Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson to kind of be those top-level communicators and defenders for a lot of perimeter players, and that just wasn't going to happen today. I think the Jazz rotation has gotten a lot cleaner and easier since Chris Dunn has been forced out of the rotation. I think Chris Dunn is a rotation NBA player, but it's too difficult on the Jazz to play 5 guards, especially if you only have one quality center, or not even just center, but like true front court player. Like I think you can get away with other types of front court players, like a Zach Collins in San Antonio. Trying to think about their like pseudo front court players. Anthony Davis, right? Like he loves to play the 4. He's more preferably a 4. Chet Holmgren, right? Like he's not a true center, but they're playing him at center a lot. The Jazz with Collins and Markkanen are pretty much exclusively small forward, power forward types, and you can run into a lot of problems defensively if those are really your true 4 and 5. So when you have a rotation of that, the Jazz don't really have a lot of guys behind that. You have Omer Yurtseven, quality kind of like third center who didn't play today. But the Jazz don't really have a lot of depth behind that. Simone Fontecchio is another 3-4. And by the way, he alligator arms every rebound. I think torture for me would be watching Simone Fontecchio try to rebound defensive rebounds for 40 minutes a game. Lukas Samanic, pure 3-4. He can't play up a position. Taylor Hendricks, not ready. String Bean, also, he's probably more of a 3-4. His height says he's 6'11". He's a 3-4. So if you're playing a lineup of Collins and Markkanen, it makes sense that you might need to have more guard depth and just kind of rotate through your guards and have that kind of rotation. But it has been much cleaner for the Jazz to play Sexton and Horton Tucker 20 minutes a night, give Fontecchio some burn, and just don't have Dunn in the rotation. Obviously, I am very, very, very interested to see how the rotation looks when Kessler gets healthy again. Because you have Collins with 35 minutes, Markkanen with 40 minutes, Clarkson with 36 minutes, Agbaji with 25 minutes, and Keontae George with only 29 minutes a day. Nine-man rotation for the Jazz today, with Fontecchio getting 15 minutes. Obviously, Kessler gets all 15 of those. and Markkanen plays 40 minutes a day, he probably takes 5 minutes away from Markkanen. Let's not kill Markkanen. Collins plays 35 minutes a day, probably takes 5 minutes away from Collins. Let's not kill John Collins. So 10 minutes for Markkanen and Collins, and all of Fontecchio's 15. You get 25 minutes already for Kessler. I think it's probably healthy for where Kessler's at in his career. And frankly, there just isn't a place for Chris Dunn in this rotation right now. Colin Sexton is objectively a better player in the NBA than Dunn. And I will entertain arguments for why Chris Dunn is better than Taylor Horton-Tucker, but obviously the coaching staff feels otherwise with respect to THT and what he can provide offensively and defensively. He's a very good defensive wing defender. And he can run. I think he runs like the Markkanen-centric offense a little bit cleaner than Chris Dunn has. Chris Dunn's 2023 has been very rocky to start. I don't think that's an accident. So we'll see. I thought it was very good that Chris Dunn is clearly going to be the first guard off the bench, but I think it's very good that the rotation was cleaned up a little. Give Keontae George the engine to the offense. Let him be a point guard that we've never seen before in college. That apparently he's shown in practice, and he just stabilizes the offense. And Chris Dunn will play when we have an injury or a trade. And that sort of thing. Talked about Agbaji's defense. I thought I was wildly impressed by him. Sexton, not worth really talking about with his 8 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He does the usual 20-point Colin Sexton thing, full dynamo, full energy. I just want to finish tonight talking about Keontae George. Once again, Keontae George has proven that he is the point guard of the future. His defense was atrocious tonight. A lot of missed rotations. Can't really stand in front of his guy one-on-one, but he is a rookie. I'm not going to ascribe problems with his defense quite yet. Donovan Mitchell was supposed to come out of college being this defensive dynamo with his long arms, his squat stance, and he can really dive for shit and really be impressive. And Donovan Mitchell has always been fucking terrible on defense. So Keontae George was coming into the NBA with, we're not sure what kind of defender he's going to be. Well, let's start with the offense. Let's figure out offense. And Keontae George has done a thing that, and I'm going to say this on multiple postcasts, so this will not be the first time that you hear this about Keontae George. Riley O'Brien asking, if we redraft right now, where does Keontae get picked? He's obviously going to be top 5, right? Point guard is the hardest position to. Has the highest barrier to entry in the NBA. I would argue that power forward center is the hardest position to master in the NBA because of. I think power forward center is the hardest position to master in the NBA because of what you have to be responsible for defensively and offensively, the things that you have to call out and be communicative and have your athleticism moving from one side of the paint to the other side of the paint. I think that that's just incredibly difficult to master. But if you're big and you're athletic and you're skilled, you can figure out how to score 10 points a game. You can figure out how to defend the rim. We've seen that with Walker Kessler. If you're smart, you're big, you're athletic, you can still defend the rim and provide a good defense. Still very hard, by the way, not to discount what Walker Kessler's been able to do. But the hardest position in the NBA to even just fucking function and not be completely lost on the court is point guard. You can play the 2, you can play the 3, you can play the 4, you can play the 5, and rely on the skills and the skills you've developed and proven, if you're a veteran, to survive on the court. But if you're a point guard and you don't know the basic reads, or if you're a point guard and don't know how to understand the defensive calls that the big man is calling behind you, you cannot even survive out on the court. You are worthless to both NBA offenses and NBA defenses. A lot of bad teams deal with bad point guards, rookie point guards, young point guards, because the only way to kind of learn that stuff, well, not the only way, but the best way to learn that stuff for most ball handling type of guards is to get out there and learn it and just be on the court and play those minutes. Not guaranteed. Some guys will learn a lot best in film studies. Some guys learn best just behind the scenes and practice and training and working against the other NBA veterans on your team to learn that sort of stuff. I am blown away that Keontae George has figured out so much of NBA offense in 12 games. Where are they, 4-8 now? Is it 12 games? Yeah, 4-8. So 12 games. Taking a sip of this 8.5% beer. Delicious, by the way. I'm not sure if Keontae George can be much more than... I'm not totally sold on Keontae George as an all-star level player. But Keontae George right now is already playing at post all-star level Mike Conley kind of levels. Like, take Mike Conley without the off-the-dribble shooting. And to be clear, Keontae George has the skills for that off-the-dribble shooting. But right now, he is living the NBA game with an understanding of where the right passes are out of pick and roll, Spain pick and roll, elevator plays, horns plays, and also it's a thing you only really get by like watching the game, especially in person. Keontae George knows when it's just not his play. And he knows when it is his play. That seems stupid and reductive. Like, well, how are you supposed to tell that? It's very clear when he walks up the court. He's always the guy walking up the court with the ball. He only played 29 minutes today. He should have absolutely played 35 minutes plus. But if he's going to call his own number, or at least just like follow the play where he is going to be the point guard, it's just very clear when he's like, I'm going to execute this play and it is my time to make this pass or make this shot. And he also has a very good feel for when this is Jordan Clarkson's ball. I'm not going to do this right now. And it's not a your turn, my turn thing. You see a lot of that with the Houston, James Harden, Russell Westbrook offenses. Your turn, my turn. There wasn't any feel to it. It was your turn, my turn. Your turn, run a pick and roll. My turn, run a pick and roll. Instead, Keontae George really keeps the defenses guessing with respect to what kind of play is going to be run right now. Do I have the verve? Do I not have the verve to run this kind of pick and roll? Am I going to shoot? Am I not going to shoot? And even better, if he decides to give the ball to JC and let him go to work, KG's moving. He is absolutely moving. He's moving around, causing the defenses to react to his movement, which opens the floor for Jordan Clarkson. That's really cool shit. I really love watching him play. I'm not sure if he's going to reach this super all-star level that I'd love him to reach. But just having being this competent point guard out there, I have a lot of fun watching it. Jazz fall to the Suns, 131-128. Big barn burner of an offensive game. We're going to sign off for tonight. I'm Mark Pereira. This is the Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. I love the Jazz. I love drinking beer. It's a Friday night. Jazz have one last chance to get into the quarterfinals for the NBA Cup. They got the Lakers on the road for their next NBA Cup game. A little bit crowded action going on in the group, so this game against the Lakers super will matter. Unfortunately, they dropped the Suns at home. Suns without Bradley Beal today, but the Suns did have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Both of those guys absolutely exploded today. Jazz team defense was quite poor, even though Ochai Agbaji on his 1-to-1 defense and his help defense. Ochai Agbaji was terrific defensively, but the rest of the team was very poor defensively. Jordan Clarkson was a maestro offensively on his way to 37 points. Keontae George continued what he has done for the past few games with a tidy 15.6 assist performance in only 29 minutes. I feel like Keontae George is on the cusp of something special. We will have to see. Jazz shooting 44% from three. The Suns shooting 55% from three, but a lot of them are wide open looks. The Jazz defense really struggled today as they fall in only a 3-point loss at home to the Phoenix Suns. Jazz are 4-8 on the season. We'll do this again soon. Have a beer with me. I'm Mark Pereira. This has been your Salt City Hoops live postcast and beer. Hope you all have a good weekend. Till the next game. Good night.